Hey guys, this is Lance of the Project Offbeat, and of course, together with me today is Matthew, my partner in Project Offbeat,
Hey
and a special
guys.
guest today, Nilesh Ghai, Regional Director of Talent.com.
Hey, hi everyone.
Yeah, so everyone, I'm sure you've already tuned into our show, Project Offbeat. We've had a couple of episodes 20 plus episodes already. And you know what? As podcasters, as content creators like ourselves, we actually look for brand partners to really help us sustain our operations, right? So we've been looking at partners, and of course, we're looking into job marketplaces because we're a show that promotes unconventional careers, right? So obviously, you want to partner with job marketplaces, right? So, to our surprise, a certain talent.com actually responded to us in LinkedIn. And that's why we are here today with talent.com's very own regional director, right? So, yeah, just a gist of why we're doing this episode today. Basically, Project Offbeat is promoting the unconventional career. Talent.com is also promoting that aspect of the unconventional career, right? So later on, the Nilesh would be going through that advocacy, right? Going through that marketplace for everyone to see. Anyway, so why don't we get started, right? Nilesh, good morning. Welcome to the Philippines. Mabuhay. How are you
Thank you.
doing?
Thank you.
How's
I
your
think
first few days here?
it's been great. It's homecoming for me, so I've lived in Manila for 4 years, and it's almost like coming home. And couldn't travel during the pandemic, so I think it's great to be back here in Manila. And yeah, I mean, getting familiar back with the traffic and everything that Manila has
Of
to offer.
course, of course, right? I mean, traffic is always there. Anyways, can you talk to us about talent.com, right? We have a lot of job marketplaces in the country. We have Caliber, we have LinkedIn, right? Can you talk to us about talent.com, what makes you different, right? And what you do there specifically?
Sure. So, talent.com is a job aggregator platform. So, when I say
Mhm.
job aggregator platform, what we do essentially is we aggregate jobs from different sources. Uh, these could be career sites of companies. These could be career sites of staffing agencies. These could be job boards itself, and then jobs of our clients. So pretty much a platform where you could see all the jobs in one place in a particular location. So our as an aggregator, our goal is to really connect the world to work. I mean, that's
Mm.
what we are driven by. That's our mission as a company, and we're trying to be that platform where a candidate or a job seeker can go to find his or her dream job
Dream
and
job.
apply to
Yeah.
that job, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's what the whole platform is all about. We do operate in over 80 countries, including the Philippines, and we've been seeing some exceptional, interaction and traffic on our website in the Philippines, and we see a lot of
Yeah.
candidates and a lot of jobs as well. So it's a great market, where there are a lot of jobs, opportunities for
Right.
everybody to
Right.
explore.
I mean, I think so far, you've told us that you're actually located in Singapore, right? But you also mentioned that there's a lot of opportunities in the Philippines. What does talent.com have for the Philippines chapter of the economy, right? What's your plans here? Why are you now, traveling to the Philippines, right? Do you see, something brewing in the country of the Philippines?
Of course, I think Philippines has always been it's an evergreen market when it comes to jobs. So many youngsters in the
Every
Philippines.
year.
Exactly, right. So you have people passing out of colleges, and everyone is looking for a job. Everyone wants to make a career. So it's a great market from that standpoint in terms of job numbers. It's also a great market in terms of the type of jobs that are evolving in the Philippines, right? So you have jobs
Yeah.
on the technology side, you
Yeah.
have jobs on, I would say, the call center side. You also have, a lot of jobs on the banking side now that, you have new fintech companies in the Philippines, which kind of now, have a lot of opportunities. You also do have, I would say the unconventional jobs.
Yeah,
A
for
lot
sure.
of them, triggered by this whole pandemic as
Mhm.
well, right? So, I mean, let's talk about, e-commerce. Let's talk about delivery, whether it's food delivery or delivery
Exactly.
of things. And these have, just gone through the roof in the last, 2 years post-pandemic, right? Everyone wants to order stuff home. No one really wants to go, or, you couldn't go outside.
Yeah.
So I think, all these dynamics have changed. So, on the digital front, you need people with,
Yeah.
like
Many creators, right?
exactly,
Many
like
creators
designers
already.
and exactly. So I
Yeah.
think I think huge changes, man.
I see. I see. You know what? You mentioned about, having more jobs in the Philippines. How about in Talent.com's roster of employees? Do you have any Filipinos onboarded, right? I
Of course.
mean, there's always the Filipino has this soul to them, this
Of
heart to
course, we
them.
we just hired a couple of team members here in the Philippines, and in
Wonderful.
fact, I'm as one of my agendas for this trip is to kind of have that induction and kind of sit with them and start
Wow.
planning for. So it's always a great, I mean, I personally, I've been here for the last 4 years, and I've kind of worked closely with Filipino team members, and I love the energy. I love Filipino people. So it's great to kind of to work with team members from this part of the world, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate what they bring to the table in terms of their effort and their honesty and approach towards work.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, it's hard not to love Filipinos. Sorry, go ahead, man.
Nilesh, I know that right now you're the regional director of talent.com. It's no easy feat, right? But can you tell about your early experience of job hunting, and how's that help you?
Wow.
How's that help you help or lead this talent job marketplace, right?
Sure, sure. That's a great question, actually, Matt. So, I mean, I started working about, say 2002, so about, 20 years ago.
Wow.
Wow.
And I mean, when I was in the college and I used to, do these part-time jobs to kind of get the pocket money going.
Yeah.
And the easy jobs at that time to get were sales jobs. So you could sell something, you could speak, and you would get some job, right? So I would land up those kind of jobs, selling credit cards and being in the exhibitions, talking to people, trying to sell stuff on your exhibition stall. And that's how I kind of started liking this whole thing about sales. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
though I never really planned to make a career out of it, it was just happening because I needed the pocket money, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
but and eventually I think with all this, I mean, it's one of the things that I like personally about sales is the fact that it's very rewarding. And the reward is I would say tangible, in the sense you can measure your success, you can measure your reward, because what you do is directly translating into revenues or
Yeah.
sales. Or so I think there's an instant gratification that you get the moment you close a deal. Or
Yeah.
so I think fundamentally I'm a salesperson, and I realized my liking for it. And then since then, obviously, I've worked in different countries. I've worked in India. Um, in 2015, I moved to the Philippines. I
Mhm.
was here for about 4 years. I then moved to Singapore, worked in that country as well. Worked with diverse team members across countries. So it's been a great journey, a great experience working with different teams, working
Yeah.
in different geographies, different countries. Yeah, so I think that's how I've kind of reached here so far. Yeah.
Right. Being on sales, I think Nilesh would know a thing or two about being rejected by clients, right? Nilesh,
So many times.
have you been rejected in your job applications
I still
ever?
I still get rejected, right? So
Oh.
you don't
Oh,
you
that
don't
is
really
inspiring, right?
you still really don't get you don't sell to 100% of people that you speak with, right? So
100%.
but yeah, I mean, over a period of time you get better in understanding
Yeah.
what a client needs. You get better in knowing what could help a client achieve what they want to achieve, and then you're able
Yeah.
to build a solution around it. I think that's the journey one does as a salesperson, right? So you
Beautiful.
start initially, and then you kind of evolve into this, I would say, more customer centric salesperson.
You talk about a lot about your job experience from starting out to right now with talent.com. I guess for job applicants out there, people who are job hunting or maybe looking for another place to go, right? I guess what makes talent.com a job marketplace they should go to or they should apply to,
Sure.
because there's so many job marketplaces
Of
out
course.
there, right?
Yeah. So I think one of the things which I spoke to you guys early on is the fact that we are an aggregator. So
Right.
when I say an aggregator, what I mean is we are a platform where you could see probably all the possible jobs in one place rather than going to four different places, right? So
Mhm.
that's a big change for we're trying to make it easier for the job seeker here to look for all the possible options and search for all the available job openings
Yeah.
in your location from a single platform rather than going to different platforms. So that is one of the things that we always aim to do, right? So we
Right.
want to be that go-to platform
Mm.
for a candidate to look for all the job openings in a particular location
Mhm.
and to be able to apply to them from the same platform. So that's really how we differentiate. Obviously, what we also do, because of the fact that we are an aggregator, we are a pretty horizontal platform in the sense
Yep.
that we have jobs across industries, we have jobs across levels. So you would see jobs from aviation to banking to finance to logistics to delivery to a kitchen to chef. You would see all sorts of jobs on
Wow.
our platform, right? So it's like a pretty horizontal job board, and it is also in that sense, I would say, a job board which kind of attracts talent from across skills and across experience levels.
How about this? Let's try to go futuristic view, right? Can you talk to us about what talent.com is trying to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years, right? They're always talking about BAG or
Sure.
BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals, right?
Mhm.
Nilesh, what is talent.com's big,
This
hairy,
sounds like
audacious
a
goals, right?
job interview. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10
Where do you
years?
see yourself in 5 to 10 years, Nilesh? Would you be here in the Philippines already? Do you have an office here, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, thanks, Lance, for asking that question. So I think as a company, right, talent.com is, we would say that we are in a hyper growth mode
Mm.
worldwide. So
Wow.
we have around 500 employees now globally, and we recently, just about 4 months ago, we raised $150 million round,
Wow.
a Series B
Wow.
funding round, which is primarily targeted towards building the whole product and marketing. So lot of that fund is going to be used in enhancing the product
Yeah,
experience,
for sure.
and the product experience is going to be enhanced not just for the employer but also for the job seeker, right? And that's how it is kind of going to play out. So obviously over the next 4 or 5 years, we look at being one of the topmost websites or topmost platforms globally for the job seeker to search and apply
Mm.
for jobs and have a very meaningful experience on the platform. So when I say meaningful, it could be more engaging,
Mhm.
to be able to engage with the employer itself,
Yeah.
to be able to have those search and application process happening with ease, to be able to have multiple job opportunities with you,
Mhm.
and to be able to really get that dream job of yours. I mean,
Right.
so I think our vision is singular, and we want to be that platform, right, which is
Go to. Yeah.
exactly, which is a go-to platform for job seekers to come on. And I think everything that we do is in that direction, and hopefully we hire more people in this part of the world,
Yeah.
in Southeast Asia, in the Philippines. We've just started now, and I think this is going to be a great region for us. I mean, just not just Philippines. I talk about Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Most countries have larger populations, younger people.
Mm.
That's the ideal demographics for the job market. I mean,
Right.
everyone looks
Yeah.
to hire people in their younger days, right? And
Yeah.
and we are blessed, in Asia, in Southeast Asia, to have a lot of young people out there who are job ready,
Yep.
and are looking for all sorts of job opportunities. So I think, yeah, I mean, we want to be the platform that they go to or they come to look for jobs.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Offbeat. Did you hear that? Right. This is the marketplace for young people, right? So it's perfect. Our listeners as well are, I would think, are ranging from 18 to 25-year olds.
Nice.
So I think it's a perfect way. Please visit talent.com. They have big plans 5 to 10 years from now. So maybe this is where you find your next job.
Nilesh, I guess just a quick follow up on
Sure.
talent.com. You say that you're a job aggregator and you um, try to cover all kinds of jobs, right?
Hmm.
What's your strategy when it comes to that? Do you actively seek out employers, or like how do you make sure that you cover all the jobs within your
That's a great
within your
question, man.
website?
That's a great question. So, being an aggregator,
Yeah.
obviously we reach out to employers
Mhm.
who are our clients. We also reach out to agencies who are also our clients. We also aggregate jobs or index them. When I say index, we kind of pull them from the career sites of companies directly as well. So
Mm.
and that's how you would see. We also work with job boards. So any job board that you would see is also our client, and they kind of have their jobs put on our platform too, because we are able to aggregate it and send them applicants. So in a way, we we've kind of identified the different sources where the jobs originate,
Right.
and try and bring all of them onto our platform. That's how we kind of try to have the length and the breadth in the jobs that we have. So that's how we can be pretty horizontal,
Right.
Yeah.
and bring in all types of jobs, because we're not agnostic about an industry. We are not focusing only on a particular skill. We are really jobs for everyone.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, Nalish, now we're jumping to the what's in it for our audience part, right?
Sure.
So, just for everyone's reference, of course, you're listening to Project Offbeat, and here we talk about the unconventional career. The careers that, perhaps may not be in your usual corporate track, right? So, okay, my question to you, Nalish, is, can you share what's been the most highly sought after careers in your marketplace the past, few years, right? Can you share 2 to 3 careers from this spectrum? One corporate
Mm-hmm.
and one non-corporate or unconventional career in your marketplace.
Sure, of course, yeah. We actually published a report recently, and kind
Ooh.
of
Mm.
have some numbers on it, and we did some data crunching. So I have those numbers handy, and maybe those are the numbers I would like to speak about, right? So on the corporate side, in the Philippines, and I'm going to specifically talk about
Yep.
Philippines, and so we look at it from two sides. One is the demand side, so we want to know where is the job demand for what kind of industries, what kind of skill sets,
Mhm.
and we also want to know what is the supply, because there could be a mismatch, right? It's not necessary
Right.
that the supply is matching up to the demand. So
Right.
there could always be a mismatch, and so I would first talk about the demand side, so in terms of where the jobs are, and then I'll also tell you about where are we on the supply side when it comes to
Okay.
the Philippines, right?
Okay.
Makes
So
sense.
so on the corporate jobs, I think from the data that we analyzed, the top jobs are in the office and administrative positions. Basically,
Really?
these could be call
Really?
center roles, these could be BPO roles,
Oh.
these could be administrative support functions. So those are the categories which have the maximum number of jobs. Probably goes well with Philippines as a market.
Yeah.
As an employment market, right? So you
Right.
have a lot
Great
of call
English,
centers,
yeah.
and great English speaking, right? So yeah, so that's one. That's the number one.
Interesting.
Then we see a lot of jobs at the supervisory management level jobs. So
Mhm.
that's another or the second category in the corporate job where we see a lot of management jobs. Um, Followed by jobs in the banking and financial operations. So basically that's the third industry where we see, or third job category where we see a lot of jobs in the Philippines. uh, then we have a lot of computer and IT related jobs. So that's the fourth category here in the Philippines. So
You're
that's
right.
how I would probably talk about the top
Yeah.
four, job categories when it comes to the corporate jobs, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now coming over to the non-corporate jobs, obviously, one thing that we've kind of analyzed and I've noted is it's probably, if you look at the overall demand in terms of number of jobs, the non-corporate jobs would be about 1/10 of
Right.
the corporate jobs. Right?
Understandably.
Yeah, so it would be smaller in volume.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I've kind of put them together in terms of the categories of jobs, right? So the top jobs in terms of demand in the Philippines are from the art, design, entertainment, field. So and these could be different types of job roles. I'm just talking about the job category.
Right.
This category could have many sorts of jobs. For
Yeah.
example, across our job categories, we have in the Philippines we have over 3,800 different job roles.
Wow.
Right, but we've kind of grouped
Wow.
them broadly in categories which can encompass or kind of sum up those jobs, right? So so arts, design, entertainment, and media. That's the number one.
Sports.
Sports as well. Yes,
Really?
right. So sports
Lance,
and
Lance is
media.
gonna
Yeah,
check
I mean,
this.
Maybe I'm in the wrong industry. Just kidding.
Yeah, so that's number one. Then we have healthcare practitioners and occupations.
Yeah.
So that's the number two category. I'm talking about little offbeat, right?
Yeah.
Right. Not the typical office roles.
Maybe nurses, right? You
Exactly,
hear a
yeah.
lot of nurses.
Yeah,
coming from the
nurses, and
Philippines.
there were a lot of, especially maybe this could also be triggered due to the pandemic and the need
Exactly,
for the
exactly.
healthcare professionals, right? Then we have a lot of jobs on the transportation and moving.
Right.
Oh, you mean the
material moving,
logistics?
Right.
logistics and transportation, right? And
right.
which is what we were talking about a while ago when we spoke about this
That's
whole
interesting.
pandemic and people ordering stuff, e-com, food, what have you, right? And eventually people need to receive things at their houses and someone needs to deliver those things, right? So
Yeah.
obviously that has led to this whole
Nice.
demand for transportation and material moving.
Right.
And the fourth category is education and
That's good to know.
allied occupation.
That's
So
good to know.
it could
Yeah.
be tutors, it could be teachers, it could be people, and also we have to realize that work from home has been a big trigger, right? So now
Right.
Yeah.
you could technically be based anywhere in the Philippines. You could be in Davao and teaching a kid here in Manila. You could be in Ilocos and probably teaching
Wow.
someone
Yeah.
in Cebu and so on and so forth, right? So it's really changing the game now, and that's already the
Right.
case. So yeah, those are the four industries where we see the demand when it comes to I would say the non-conventional
Yeah.
careers.
Right.
Nilesh, sorry, before you go to like maybe the supply side in a
Yeah,
bit, right?
yeah.
I want to ask you, any role here that surprised you that it's actually abundant in the Philippines, or are these, pretty much expected for you?
I mean, I was quite surprised with the teachers thing
Oh,
coming in the top
yeah.
four, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that in terms of education and in terms of so that really caught my eye, and that was something
Yeah.
that was not expected. I mean, the others are pretty logical, and
Right.
Yeah.
you can see, but this whole and especially in the teachers, I kind of went a little deeper, and I saw a lot of ESL or English as a second language teacher.
Oh,
So
Wow.
so those teacher
Yeah.
opportunities are a lot. So
Right.
and probably these are teachers based in the Philippines teaching English language to kids in China or Korea or Japan because of
Yeah.
this whole digital disruption.
right.
But yeah, I mean that was quite a
Yeah.
surprising.
For me, I
Get-
think I was really surprised that art and design made it to the list in the Philippines, right?
Yeah, I think for us, right, when we look at art and design, and when we look at that particular category, and if I drill down into the job roles in that category, art and design could have people ranging from UI UX design,
Yeah.
they could be web design, and it perfectly explains this whole digital movement, right? So everyone has gone digital.
Nice.
From retail to banking to you name the sector, and everyone had to go digital
Right.
because of COVID. And I think that's where the need for these designers came in, and and obviously a lot of them would come with or without the traditional arts education.
Right.
But yeah, I mean they have the skill and they know how to do UX UI design or web design or what have you, right? So
Yeah.
Lance, I'm frankly offended that you think art design is not
I'm sorry.
deserving of the top
Ma-
one.
ma-
Because
man
I
is from
currently work
Canva.
in I
Yeah.
work in Canva, and I've seen this virtual communication movement
Of
these
course.
past few years.
of course, yeah.
And yeah, actually, it reminds me. There was this listener we had before, who actually came to us. He messaged us and said that he transitioned to a education, online course education
Yeah.
role. So
Right.
like when you said education, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense. That tracks.
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, and that's something that we see, at least from the data. We see that that's particular job category
Right.
which is seeing
Yeah.
steady
Mm.
growth in the Philippines.
Looking at it, I think, Matt, we're in the right place, right? There's a high demand in financial operations. We're there.
Yeah.
There's a high demand in arts and design. We're also there, right? Even entertainment, I guess Project Offbeat is somewhat an entertainment
Of course, yes. Yeah, you
platform,
guys are,
right?
yeah.
So, we may be in the right place, man. We may be in the right place. Thank you, Nilesh, for shedding light to us. I know you guys release reports, but it's not that easy to get the data out there in those reports, right? So thank you for really summarizing these for us. Nilesh,
Sure.
how about the supply? You mentioned,
Of course, yeah.
it may not be
The same.
exactly intertwined, right?
That's correct.
Go ahead.
Right. So I was looking at the supply side, and I would talk about the non-conventional jobs first,
Okay.
because we just spoke about the demand. So I think I see that there are a lot of job seekers who are looking and applying for jobs on the transportation and
Mhm.
movement side. So there are a lot of people looking
Right.
for jobs as maybe
Absolutely.
delivery drivers or drivers or delivery partners.
Mhm.
So I think there's a big, so that's the number one actually in terms of non-conventional supply side.
Yeah.
Followed by education. So
Ooh.
that's a second, in terms of the supply side. So you probably have a lot of people who want to work as online teachers
Online
or
teachers,
ESL
yeah.
teachers, right? And that is what we can see from the data side when we look at the supply.
Mhm.
And then it's followed by a lot of the arts, design, entertainment, right? So that's the
That's good to
third
know.
Yeah.
category of job seekers who are looking and applying for jobs on
Right.
our platform. And the fourth one is really the production operations people. So people working on the shop floor in companies.
Oh.
Right.
So it's the fourth when it comes to the supply side. So there are a lot of people looking for those jobs and applying to those jobs. So that's how the top four categories of from a supply side really.
Makes sense because the pandemic is slowly going out.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
malls are opening up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. That's correct.
Awesome. Awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, I think no surprises here. I think these are things that might be actually something that we kind of expected. The
Yeah.
high supply in. Okay.
Sure,
How
right.
about we move on to the corporate supply, right?
Sure,
Do
sure.
you guys have rankings for that as well?
Yeah. So, in terms of the corporate jobs, right, in terms of the supply side, I think the top category is the call center, BPO, office administrative.
Yeah.
I think that's always in demand in the Philippines.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people looking for jobs. There's also a lot of churn in that industry. Like a lot of people switch jobs more often.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
that also explains that that's always the top category when it comes to. Then, I think in terms of the second, category where we see a lot of candidates applying and job seekers applying for job is the management roles. So, typically we're talking about supervisory management roles and, managers and, maybe higher, levels as well
Right.
on the management side.
Right.
But I mean, that's another category where we are seeing that's a second in terms of the supply side. Then we see a good supply on the business and finance. So I'm talking about banking, financial sector, talking about people who are in any of those occupations, and that's the third category. And the fourth category that I see is really the computer and IT.
Yeah.
So that's really so I think there's pretty much an alignment with the supply and
That's
demand.
good to know. That's good to know,
When it
right?
comes to the corporate
Right.
jobs, in the Philippines.
Right. Before I let Matt ask his cue, right? I just have one question, right? Does talent.com look at why there is possibly a lot of churn as well in any of these? Like you mentioned, I think call center, there's a lot of churn there, right?
Yeah.
Does talent.com also have like data as to why, people keep on, leaving for these jobs or leaving these jobs, or that's beyond what a marketplace is trying to provide?
No, I guess we can obviously have a lot of data, and you can analyze it to kind of understand. But it's largely a factor of two three things, as I understand. One is it's a trend of the marketplace. So for example, if there are new companies coming into a particular industry,
Yep.
there's likely to be a lot of churn because the existing employees would move over to join these new companies, right? So that
Yeah.
could be one of the things.
Yeah.
Or the work itself in the existing companies is growing. So for example, if you could talk about any digital company which was in the whole digital disruption process, right? It could be an IT company or what
Yeah.
have you, right? And these companies, when the digital disruption was happening, their work increased multifolds, right, during
Yeah.
COVID.
Right.
And so they had more projects and they needed more people, and so there you would again see a lot of churn and a lot of you know job seekers moving jobs and switching over, right?
Right.
And also I think it's also based on your the country's education infrastructure, right? So a lot of times it also depends on what are the people studying and what sort of jobs they look for after completing their education, right? So
Yeah.
especially in Asia, right, we are countries with larger populations. We
Definitely.
have a lot of youngsters, so it is important to know what's that, and that also impacts the job market because eventually they will come out. So for example, if I've studied arts, I'm likely to look for jobs in the allied
Exactly.
field of
Exactly.
study, right? So similarly, if I've studied banking or finance and accounting, I would look for jobs which are aligned to my skill set,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so that it's really a macro and micro
Yeah.
economic
Mm.
factors which affect the job
That's interesting.
churn in any
Yeah.
country.
The naive me always thought maybe it's just the compensation, If it's low compensation, I'm moving into a different job, right? But it's really interesting that even these macro factors actually
That's
play a
correct.
role, right?
That's correct.
Thank you for sharing this to us.
It's kind of interesting because the data that you have, at least per country, it
Mhm.
gives you a snapshot of maybe what's going on in that country,
Of
whether it
course.
be their
Yeah,
education, whether it be
yeah.
their infrastructure, job, what their country's needs are, be it like more manufacturing or maybe
Right.
BPO or
That's right.
healthcare
A
or whatnot.
snapshot, right? A snapshot
yeah,
of
Yeah.
exactly.
I think that's, as a job platform, that's you're blessed to be in that industry, right, where you are
Mhm.
actually able to look at employment, and employment is always something that drives the economy forward, right?
Yeah.
So
Gotcha. Yeah.
so it's a great industry, and it gives us a great overview, being in that position to kind of understand
Yep.
what industries, what skills, the whole movement of the job industry or the employment market in a particular country, and it's a great place to be in, honestly.
Awesome. Awesome.
So I guess when we're talking about all of these unconventional careers and
Yeah.
how it compares to maybe corporate, you know, I've been hearing a lot of stories about maybe unconventional people maybe turning to corporate just because it pays better, it
Mhm.
has better benefits and whatnot. What's your insight on that? Like, do you feel like unconventional careers are not as favored because of
Right.
because of the lack of, I guess, the
Compensation,
the
yeah.
opportunities, the
Yeah.
compensation and
And to add
whatnot.
to that, I think if they can find the right compensation here in the local country, they would
Mhm.
move abroad, right? That's why there's a lot of nurses abroad. It's an unconventional career. They're not paid well here, but in the abroad, they get the benefits that they deserve, right?
Sure.
Can you play a role into that? Do you think unconventional careers are, often not as paid as well as they'd like to?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, actually. And if you look at the overall trends, and we also obviously have a lot of salary data on different jobs, because a lot of employers, when they post their jobs, they also mention the salaries that they offer. So it kind of gives us an overview of salaries. And I was going through some data on the salary trends, trying to understand how it plays a role, right? And I was especially more keen to look at 2021 versus 2022,
Yeah.
now that we are post COVID and in COVID kind of
Mhm.
so what I realized is, in on the corporate side, across all the top, four job categories that we discussed, right? The salaries have pretty much stayed the same, in the sense there hasn't been,
Plateauing. Yeah.
there hasn't been a growth over as compared to the last year. Maybe small growth was seen in the IT, which probably resonates with the demand for IT professionals, right? So there was like a 5% growth on the salaries, but otherwise, the salaries have pretty much stagnated. In fact, in certain job, like I observed a job category like sales and allied, roles, the salary actually went down.
Wow.
So it
Wow.
actually, as compared to the last year, this year people were paid less. So it could also mean that there are more people now looking for jobs. So there are more options. So salaries can also kind of, that trend can affect salaries going down. So if you have more people and less jobs, then, maybe the bargaining strength is with the employer and less with the employee, right? Because you have that situation. But interestingly, and looking at the data, and this is something that I observed at the non-conventional jobs, and especially talking about, I was looking at salary increase for delivery drivers, okay, over 2021 to 2022, and there is a 72% salary increase.
Wow, that's huge.
That these roles have experienced over last year. So, which clearly means that this demand has gone through the roof, and everyone wants things to be delivered, and it has changed the way we live. Honestly, it has changed our lifestyle. So people want everything to be delivered to them, and that really
Yeah.
explains the jump in the salaries. I was looking at salaries for ESL teachers, and that's about another 80% jump from 2021 to
That's
now.
surprising.
Really?
And probably that explains why there are so many jobs and why there are so many people applying for them, right? Because there is a jump. So, what I'm saying is maybe non conventional jobs may not be paying at the level of a corporate job, but the growth in certain of these categories have been much higher than the corporate jobs.
Right.
So corporate jobs, you're not growing every year by 70%. You can't.
Yeah,
But
you're right.
but in non-conventional, or I would say the offbeat careers, you're seeing those kind of salary growths, and I think that's fantastic. I mean, across board, I looked at designers, typically web designers. I saw a growth of over 12% over the last year. I looked at UI UX designers, and that's about 22%.
Wow.
And that's amazing. I mean, we seeing that jump in their annual salaries going from to up to 22% is amazing. And I think so non-conventional careers can also pay off, to be very honest with you. It can, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, if you sit and start comparing it with a typical corporate career, maybe not. Also, I feel that there are certain offbeat careers which kind of overlap into the mainstream careers as well. For example, designers could be a good example,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you talk about a UI UX designer, they are on the design side, but they are also mainstream in a way. So they kind of have the best of both worlds.
Right.
Right. So you could be a designer, so you could be creative, you could be passionate
Yeah.
about what you're doing, or you could be someone who likes SEO and to play with keywords and AdWords, and that could be a great and that's also getting mainstream now because of this whole digital disruption.
Yeah.
What-
It's amazing, right? I mean, at least people are now actually seeing, okay, I'm doing an offbeat career, but you know what? There's actually a direction that it becomes mainstream too,
Of course.
right? With all of these digital platforms, I remember in our country, TikTok wasn't there before, Kumu wasn't there before, but now people are thriving because they were just video editors before, but
That's
now
correct.
TikTok and Kumu are like all the rage, hiring these video editors, to
That's
help
right.
them create content, right? So
Right.
again, digital disruption is,
That's right.
like you mentioned, is really important.
Lance, what do you think? Are we still in the same
I think
right
we're
industry?
I think we're still in the right industry, right? I mean,
Maybe we should teach English.
right. I mean, all the more reason, guys, that you have to watch Project Offbeat, right? You see, there's an 80%, 72% growth for these offbeat careers, right? So I guess that's why we need to give more light to these. How about in terms of benefits? Do you see? I mean, like, of course, the corporate job, right? They give you so many benefits. Medical. There's actually a lot of payouts when you retire, right? for the offbeat careers, they're usually freelancers, right?
Yeah.
Usually, do you think there are any benefits that are being given to these offbeat? For example, you mentioned riders, right?
Mhm.
If none, do you think we need to add a bit more to that to make it more enticing?
Sure. I think, by and large, if you look at most of the offbeat careers,
Mhm.
and like you rightly pointed out, Lance, they are freelance careers,
Yep.
and people don't have the safety net that a typical corporate job would
Exactly.
have, right? So they don't really have that fallback. So if they don't have a project, they're not probably getting paid that month, right? And that's how tricky it can get, right? And probably they don't have insurance and medical coverage and so on and so forth. And I think that's something that is a challenge at an industry level that you can observe. So a lot of job categories
Mhm.
do not have, and especially I would talk about developing countries like Philippines, where the healthcare system is not as equipped
Right.
as compared to, let's say, a developed country like
Yeah,
Singapore, right?
right.
So I'm just trying to draw some comparisons, and there you have the government's support system is good enough, so you could still be a freelancer and not worry about health or not worry about those kind of costs, right? Or education.
Yeah.
But in a country like Philippines, those are important things, and maybe there needs to be some sort of change happening in that particular area, and there needs to be some sort of I would say disruption happening in that area where freelancers also are able to demand
Yeah.
for
Yep.
certain safety nets, and they get those safety nets from
Exactly.
people who give them
Exactly.
work, or people who work with them. I think
That's beautiful.
it's something
Yeah.
that needs to happen, and it can only happen if the industry comes together and people
Right.
set that up as a benchmark, saying that we don't work if we don't have these things, right? So,
Right.
Right. And you mentioned that, rightly so, that um there are salary increases for all of these industries, but sometimes it doesn't really, like, freelancers would just take on jobs so
Yeah.
that they can pay off maybe an insurance or a health
Exactly.
plan or something
That's
that
right.
that they might have had if they went corporate.
Yeah.
That's
So
correct.
sometimes it evens out in such a way.
I actually remembered when we talked to this comic book artist
Mhm.
in Project Offbeat, right? And she
Right.
mentioned, you know what, if the government would have given us a bit more grants,
Yeah.
I mean, I could do this full time. But
Of
now
course.
she has to do it alongside her work in PNG
Yeah.
just to pay off her bills, right? So I
And that
completely
probably
agree.
explains, Lance, what you're talking about a while ago in terms of migration of people
Mhm.
Yeah.
into
It's
more
unfortunate.
developed countries, right? So and it happens generally from a developing country. People, especially people from the offbeat careers, they realize that they have a better safety net in developed countries, and they start
Exactly.
migrating to those
Exactly.
countries, and because probably it's not available. Like, for example, grants, right? It's something that you would hear more often in a developed country. You don't hear that word in a developing country, and I think that's the big reason why
Yeah.
people do migrate for
Yeah.
opportunities, for better, I would say, life. So yeah, I mean these things are things which can change, and which can help retain the talent within the country, right? So
Mhm.
Yeah. Nilesh, this may be like out of your usual scope, right? But why do you think when people migrate, the offbeat careers are given much more attention to, or given much more benefits to, compared to here in the Philippines, where you mentioned the top jobs here are like call center, management, banking, computer, right? I mean, all these are already mainstream. Why is there not much demand, maybe in a country like the Philippines versus maybe Singapore, like you mentioned?
yeah, I think overall, I think it's also a factor of the life of the people and the lifestyle that you are
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
A country like the Philippines is driven. It's an economy which is growing rapidly, right? Obviously, this is the outsourcing destination of the world, so you have jobs coming from everywhere, right? Right. So
Outsourcing destination,
obviously,
yeah.
that means that you need more people to work on those jobs. People who are willing to work harder, and then there are the developed countries have certain categories of jobs which
Yep.
probably need more of I would say skill set, more of understanding of those, but and they also have basic compensation structures which are pretty much, for example, minimum wages, right? If you look at the minimum wage standards of a developed country versus a developing country, that's where the answer is, right? So even if you were just an artist,
Exactly.
and you were working in a developed country, you are going to get that minimum wage, because by law the employer is supposed to be paying you that.
Without
Or
even
if I'm engaging you even as a freelancer, I'm supposed to be paying you as per the minimum wage standards. And there's a big jump in that. I mean, that number is exponentially high
Yeah.
in developed countries like Australia or Singapore, right? I'm talking about very close by APAC countries, right? Versus the developing countries. I mean, there's no such. I mean, there is a minimum wage, but people may or may not follow it in all practical applications, right? So that's where the challenge is, and I think that's the reason why people would prefer to go and work in
Nice.
countries where you have more defined minimum wages, where you're at least going to make so much money if you were to work so many hours a day.
Right.
And that's what everyone eventually, I mean, no matter what career you have, whether it's a corporate or a unconventional career, you would still need money to pay your bills, and right. So
Yep. Yeah.
Actually, it's an interesting point you put out there, the outsourcing capital of the world. Well, basically because you can pay a Filipino cheaper than
Yeah.
maybe other countries, but that brings up a interesting question about sometimes especially now that everyone's working online now, what differentiates maybe a Filipino graphic designer from an American graphic designer if the output's the same? Sometimes that's where the question of, oh, why can't we just be paid the same in such a way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm not expecting like an answer here, but it's just it was just something that comes up all the time whenever, especially when we're talking about these unconventional careers.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Right. I mean, I just hope there was a world where podcasters get paid the minimum wage, right? I mean, I mean, we may do this full time if that's the case, right? So,
Yeah, this is
right?
fun.
I mean,
Yeah.
I hope people would see it that way too, right? Maybe we have to book our flight to Singapore already. Sorry, tomorrow. Okay, Matt, you want to take the last one?
Yeah, sure. So, Nilesh, I hope you've been listening to our podcast.
I was, yes. I've heard a few of your episodes, and it's quite interesting. I mean,
Mm.
there's so much diversity in the people who've come
Thank
on
you.
the show, and it's great to listen to their stories. It's great to understand what sort of career paths they have taken,
Right.
and they've dared to be different from
Exactly.
others and still manage to find success in what they do. And I think it's very encouraging, and it's very motivating for anybody to listen to those stories.
Right, exactly. And I think what I admire most about them is like the courage to actually do it
Of course.
versus like thinking, oh, should I do it or not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like, among all of the careers that we've featured, I'm sure that, there might be some careers that you might be interested that, we haven't featured yet. Do you have I guess a wish list of careers that we as Project Offbeat can tackle in the next season, for example?
Sure. I think maybe we could look more inward and look at careers which affect our lives on a
Ooh.
day-to-day basis, right? So
That's
for
deep.
example, let's talk about healthcare practitioners. Let's
Mm.
talk about
Medical field, right?
yeah. So there are researchers who are doing on virology, trying to understand what the next
Wow.
virus is going to look like, right? Or,
Right.
when are we going to come into a similar situation like the COVID, and how are we going to deal with it? Or even a delivery driver who delivers food to you, we don't realize it. We just open the app, we just order, and then in about 30 minutes you have your food. But
Exactly.
that guy's probably been doing that even when it was COVID, and it was
Mm.
he was I mean, so he was brazing through rains and sun, and to get you. I mean, it's changing our lives, right? And it's making our lives easier. And we need to talk to them as well, and look at their journeys. Though they may not be the celebrated
Right.
careers, but they are careers, and they are They are
Exactly.
probably something that helps us in our day-to-day life. So maybe
Yeah.
more of such examples, right? So
Yeah.
we could look at people working in climate change, for example, and how it affects our life at the end of it,
Ooh.
right? So probably no one understands what they're doing and how it affects you, but it is affecting your day-to-day life, right? So I think those kind of careers would be interesting to kind of feature on the show, and would love to hear those
Yeah.
those episodes for sure.
Got
That's a
it.
challenge, man.
That's our
That's gonna be a challenge. Maybe our season 4 coming up is that is the theme right there, right? Something that affects career that affects your lives directly. Okay, so the last part of our show, as our offbeat audience have been very used to, is what we call the off the record portion. So just a brief context, everyone. Nilesh didn't know these questions, right? But off the record is basically this show where we get to know our guests beyond their careers, right? Maybe just them as a person, right? So Nilesh, let's start our off the record series. All right, number one question. Strip Nilesh of everything he is as the regional director of talent.com. Who is Nilesh without this title of and without talent.com in the picture?
I would say that I am a hidden chef. Like I love to
Oh,
cook.
really?
And,
Oh, wow.
I aspire to learn cooking someday, and I don't know which day, but yeah, I do aspire to. But yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I do in my spare time, and
Interesting.
I love to experiment with different cuisines and cook.
Wow.
So yeah, that's something that gives me happiness. So
Wow.
Any
I-
specific cuisine that you wanna explore?
I want to learn how to bake.
Ooh.
Haven't really
Ooh.
done a lot of baking, so
Yeah.
I want to learn how to bake, maybe even pastries, and
Right.
so those are a couple of things I want to really learn.
Yeah, maybe Nilesh, do you know how to do adobo?
I love adobo though. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, it's
Right,
something that I
right.
like. Every time I come to Philippines, I ensure that I definitely eat the adobo. It's great to
Yeah,
have that.
there's a lot of permutations to it, right?
Yeah.
You know, since we're talking about it already, like since you're here for a few days, right? Well, do you have a bucket list that you wanna check off while you're here?
No, I'm actually, because a lot of this trip is about work and meeting,
Right.
clients. So probably, but yeah, I mean, in the spare time, I would love to do, some of the catch up on
Yeah.
with my
Mm.
friends. Like I have a few friends here who's still here, and so that's what
Right.
I would be doing. Yeah.
Yeah, at least stop by Jollibee, right?
Of course, yeah.
everyone, our chicken is
Chicken
different.
Joy.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure. So I think this is the hardest question, Nilesh. Okay, say you have full say in what your son will do for the rest of his life, the rest of his
Ooh.
career, Nilesh, and he is also happily allowing you to plot it for him.
Mhm.
Nilesh, how would you plot out the career of your son? Right, it's up to you. No bars hold. Right, your son
Isn't
may or
this-
may not hear this. Right.
Isn't this the Indian parent's dream or
Right.
something?
So, Nilesh, no judging here. How would you plot it if you had full authority and your son would be happily allowing you to do it?
So I honestly, I feel that I'm ill-equipped to though I've been in this employment related industry for over
Yeah.
about 15 years or so now, but I still feel that I'm ill-equipped to really sit and counsel my son on what
Beautiful.
would be the best career
Wow.
opportunity or the best path for him to choose. But I believe that I would always give him the same advice: just do what makes you happy, and I'll back you up. So that's really
That's
what
beautiful.
I would tell my son, honestly.
Wow, parents. I mean, here because of course here in the Philippines, you hear of the trends where if you take up the art career, it might not be as acceptable to
Yeah.
Filipino or Chinese parents.
That's
And I
correct.
mean, there's good reason to it.
Pretty
but-
similar to the
Right.
way it is in India as well, right? So
Right.
people would
Yeah.
always look down on some of the career options and look up on some of the mainstream career options. Like in India, in my days when I was growing up, being an engineer or a doctor was supposed to be the best thing that you could do, and then
Oh wow, I've heard of that line before. Okay, so yeah, Nilesh, Thank you for taking us off the beaten path.
Thank
It's
you,
been an
thank you,
amazing
Matt and Lance. Thank you for
episode.
having me here, and
Yeah.
it's great to be with you guys. And I like what you guys are doing.
Thank
Keep up
you.
the good work, and
Thank you.
I hope to listen to more of the people who come on your podcast, and I want to listen
Right.
to more of the episodes that you guys put out there. And all
Thank
the
you.
best to you guys. I mean,
Thank
keep
you.
doing the fabulous work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
You want to close with anything that you want to plug? If say people want to contact you for talent.com opportunities,
course, yeah.
how would they reach you?
Sure. I mean, I'm there on LinkedIn, so people can look me up and send me a connection request, and I will accept it. They can reach out to you if they're following your social media handles, and
That's right.
you can just connect them to me. You have my emails and you have my phone numbers. So yeah, I'm
Awesome.
happy to connect with the audience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for
Thank
listening
you.
to our show. Once again, Nilesh Ghai, Regional Director of Tan.com, Matthew Yu, co-host of Project Offbeat, and Lance, co-host of Project Offbeat. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.